and welcome to DawnNews English. I'm Nadia Naqi with you. A lot is happening regarding the politics in this country, as in you get to know so much and so fast that you seem to have a look at it from an economic point of view. The economy, of course, is in shambles. The government seems to struggle to bring down the inflation as much as possible. They're trying to take measures, but nothing seems to work. Today, the state bank governor also announced to open LCs and, has lifted the import ban on some items also. Where are we heading to? Also, you all know that Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Assembly has been dissolved. The Punjab Assembly has been dissolved. Are we really going in for elections? Can the country actually withstand the pressure of the general election, or even if it's happening only in the provincial assemblies? This is all what we're going to be discussing with Dr. Abdas Azhar, a renowned economist. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Saab, in very simple words for our audience to understand, there's so much of discussion around, you read on Twitter, you read on different social platforms that Pakistan is actually defaulted. And it's just that the announcement wasn't made. How far this is true?
Thank you very much for inviting me to your show, Nadia. I'm very happy to be here. Look, when it comes to whether Pakistan has defaulted or not, I think it really depends on which definition you are willing to accept. Now, there are some people out there on social media, and some of them are definitely partisan analysts who have been talking about the fact that Pakistan in a way has defaulted. But I think I would like to take the long view. And I think Pakistan has not defaulted unless the Pakistani government says that it has defaulted, just like it happened in the case of Sri Lanka when they came out and they said, look, we have no foreign exchange left to import fuel. We have no foreign exchange left to service the debt that we have taken. So in this case, we have defaulted. And so my definition of default is a bit different. So I don't think Pakistan has defaulted, and I still do not think that Pakistan is going to default, because, as you know, very recently, this government has been able to manage to get about $4 billion in extra financing or liquidity that is going to be injected into as far as our foreign exchange reserves are concerned. On top of that, I've heard, at least this was what was told to me by somebody very close to the administration, that Pakistan is going to be saving a bunch when it comes to importing oil from Russia is concerned, and that might actually further narrow down the financing gap. So I think the kind of rhetoric and narrative that we have been hearing for about 2 months now has to do with different political characters who are now extremely active in the Pakistani political arena. And on the one hand, you have people who are partisan analysts who would like to create a lot of pressure on the system so that the system can take the whole setup towards elections. And, when I use the term system, I think you probably understand, where am I referring? And then you have people who were working with the administration, who were working with this government, and now are no longer part of this government. And now they have also been saying some of the same things. So I think all in all, whoever is talking about the fact that Pakistan has defaulted or is about to default has some kind of an axe to grind against this particular government. As an independent professional economist, I don't think that's the case. I think the government is doing everything within its means to avoid a very, very tough and challenging situation. But there are no guarantees at this point.
There are no guarantees. But Dr. Saab, trying to get in some inflows from friendly countries. And of course, we got to be back on IMF also. Is this the solution to deal with the economic challenges? I mean, every government has been doing this. We saw Imran Khan, when he came to power, he was also facing the same kind of problems. And so is this government. So nobody is working towards a long-term solution, it seems.
Look, the problem with the Pakistani economy right now is that we have become stuck in the political, economic, or political democratic milieu in which this government that knows full well the kind of things that it needs to do, the kind of structural reforms, or passing on the prices, or the privatization of the state-owned enterprises, or attacking the gaps in our public finances, which means raising revenue, or attacking the giant circular debt that has amassed. I mean, they know the things that they have to do. But the problem is that when a democratic government like the one that we have, or the one that we had before this one, when they operate in a democratic context, it becomes very difficult for them to impart those kind of costs to the people, because then the people are going to punish them in the elections. And we know that the elections are just around the corner. So I think this is a catch-22 situation. And I think this situation is not going to improve even with the general election. So I don't know what you have been hearing or thinking, but I think even if we have general elections, short of Pakistan's main political parties agreeing on a charter of the economy, or developing a consensus on what are some of the things that must be done in order to save Pakistan's economy, I think no political party is going to be willing to do what has to be done, because it has a political cost.
The political cost is like something that all political parties seem to be focusing on, whether they just come to power after general elections or after VONC. Everyone thinks about that. But nobody's thinking about long-term economic solutions that are required for Pakistan to actually steer through all the crises happening time and again. Having said that, we see that Miftah Ismail, Mustafa Nawaz Khokar, we're seeing other names also, as the former finance minister has been tweeting that they're going to be holding some kind of seminars across the country. And, it's going to be about what needs to be done. What are the solutions to the problems? I don't know whether they're going to be forming a political party. Is it just going to be creating awareness? But do you really think that all the economists talks about solutions? They have been talking about, including yourself, time and again, where we are going wrong. But do you think that this group of learned people can bring about the change? Because you got to be in the system to actually bring about a change. You can't be sitting out of the system and doing it.
I have been intimately following what Miftah Ismail has been saying. Matter of fact, I did a one-on-one interview that then subsequently went viral. So I have been very closely following what he has been saying. He's basically been going to different seminars, and he's been writing columns in Dawn. And I've been reading all of them. Whatever he's saying is not anything new. I mean, essentially, we have known the things that we have to do in order to put Pakistani economy on a more sustainable trajectory since the 1990s, or for a very long time. So what he is proposing is not new. And so I think the problem is not the absence of knowledge. I think the problem is a general lack of political will that has been demonstrated by every single political party, because when they form government and they're not really sure how long they are going to be in power, they are extremely leery and careful that they should not be taking any steps that bring about any kind of social unrest or undue opposition in the street. So I think, and this is what I have been saying lately, that charter of the economy is extremely important. But I think without having a charter of democracy 2.0, you cannot really move to a charter of the economy. So I think that's the first thing that all the stakeholders, policymakers, intelligentsia, faculty, what have you, politicians, all have to get together and start thinking about a charter of democracy 2.0, because in trying to keep a very important political party out of the political system is just not going to work. And in the medium term, you are going to have to find a way to bring in and mainstream this political party, because a very, very large percentage of Pakistan's population feels that this is the political party that represents their preferences. So I think instead of moving towards a charter of the economy time and again, because we essentially know what needs to be done, we need to go towards a charter of democracy 2.0 in which all the main political parties agree on certain rules of the game. That if one of them happens to have a majority in the elections, the other political parties are not going to destabilize them.
All right. Okay, there's one more thing that I'd like to ask you for our audience. Yesterday when we heard that the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, may return to the Parliament. And then, of course, we saw that the Speaker of National Assembly accepted 35 of the resignation. But just before that, when he had I think day before yesterday is what he signaled that he may go back to the Parliament. After that, we saw a bloodbath at the PSX, right? And then, the market just sort of crashed kind of a thing, lost a lot of points. Time and again, this happens. So the market seems to give a reaction to every political development that happens in Pakistan. So do you really think that the market is reflecting or is a true indicator of Pakistan's economy?
It's a very thinly traded market. Very few people invest in stocks. So as far as being an indicator or barometer of the economic situation is concerned, I think probably the stock exchange is not a very good barometer. But the Pakistan Stock Exchange is a very good barometer of the overall sentiments that people seem to carry about the economy. The economy does respond to sentiments, because if the people are feeling extremely uncertain and anxious, that then they are not going to make the next investment. They are not going to buy the new car, or just not going to spend money. And that is going to create a number of problems, because then the economy is going to come to a standstill. So I think where it does not really represent economic fundamentals at all times, it does represent, or how should I say, it is a very good barometer for overall sentiments. And Pakistan's economy, like any other economy in any other country in the world, responds to people's sentiments.
Okay, absolutely. All right. So coming back to Darsa, how much of a pressure do you really think is he actually facing? And do you think he can sustain this pressure, or do you also see him walking out of this office?
I think only Dar Saab can answer that question, how much pressure he can sustain. I mean, he has certainly been in some very, very high pressure situations before today. I mean, there was the situation with the 97, 98 when Pakistan carried out these nuclear tests, and then there were sanctions, IMF pulled out, what have you. He has been punished for his political allegiances for a very long time, and I'm sure those have been some very high pressure situations. So I think he seems to be somebody who can definitely work or respond to high pressure situations. To answer the question, how much time do I think he has left? I would not venture to give any answer to that question. Matter of fact, I would hope that this present dispensation or this present finance team can stay in place, so that some modicum of certainty can be provided to in the minds of the Pakistani people, who are now extremely anxious and uncertain because of the never-ending uncertainty, complexity, and anxiety that is just not abating.
So what kind of prompt decision do you think is required right now for the revival of the IMF program?
I think the market-determined exchange rate is going to have to, I'm not going to say that it's going to have to go. I think some middle ground needs to be reached between the IMF and the Ministry of Finance. I think that's one sticking point for sure. I think the other sticking point has to do with the improving Pakistan's public finances the way the IMF has been asking us to do, which means that passing on the prices at the petrol pump to the final consumer. And I think the last thing that needs to be addressed has to do with making concrete plans, tangible plans to address Pakistan's giant energy, all this the circular debt that has accumulated and that keeps going up. So we need, IMF would definitely want to see tangible steps taken in that direction.
All right. And how important is it to get the IMF back on track, in your opinion?
It is extremely important. It is going to be the lifeline that Pakistan's economy is going to fend off of. So I think we basically do not have an option. And I think the government must do everything that it can to bring the IMF plan back online. I think they're already doing everything that they can. And I think the program is going to be back online in a few weeks.
All right. So when it is back online, and as you mentioned, something that's really going to hit not only the political party in power, but also the people of Pakistan are those strict conditionalities that, will result ultimately in a price hike. How do you think people are going to survive? Because, the decisions that we seem to be taking, every time, past years, I'd say, not only Imran Khan, but, governments that have been in place from years and years and years, is only for the political elite. Hardly any kind of decisions have been taken which will ultimately benefit the people of Pakistan.
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, and as a question very close to my heart. I think you have rightly pointed out that, if the deal does go through, we should expect more inflation, and this comes against the backdrop of very high inflation in Pakistan, reaching 25% year on year already. So I think life is going to become even more difficult for the average Pakistani. Now, how are people going to survive? With a lot of difficulty. And here I would just like to say that government and everybody else, for that matter, needs to really ratchet up the stipend that we are providing to the clients of Benazir Income Support Program, because, given the situation with inflation, it is not enough. At a minimum, what we need to do is to index the Benazir Income Support Program stipend to the CPI or the sensitive price index, so that whenever inflation goes up, these stipends can also go up as a result. Right. That's one thing that comes to mind. I think other than that, everybody is going to have to tighten their belts even more, and and I hope that our policymakers, our officials can get Pakistan out of these very testing economic challenges.
Okay. Last 40 seconds I have. I really want to know that, do you think in such a, when IMF is back on track, the kind of relief rebates we keep on giving to the exporters, to the business community, that also needs to be withdrawn, or we need to be giving those for the economy to actually move on through exports?
I think a very realistic cost benefit analysis has to take place. If a relief is being given so that exports can increase or the export sector can create jobs, yes, give it. But if a relief is being given because it's a form of a particular industry seeking rents from the Pakistani economy, then they should be stopped immediately. Because if there is one thing that this economy can no longer tolerate, that is rent seeking.
And that has been our habit, I guess.
That has been the norm in the last 30 years.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aqdas Afzal. You say that this is a lifeline to get the IMF back on track, and we will ultimately be paying the cost, and government needs to take some sort of decisions. The minimum is going to be to increase the stipend of the clients of Benazir Income Support Program to bring in relation with the rising inflation. Thank you so much for being with us on 20 Minutes for DawnNews English. That's all for now.